Welcome back, Global War in 1939. This is the Allied Turn 9 review and all of their gains that they've made. So let's take a look at the Soviet Union first. They came down to Iraq. So the Germans had a decent army here and another one here. Their plan was to combine both of them and attack the Russians if they didn't move out, which they did. Now they lost, all their infantry, mech, artillery, but they have all their tanks, and now Cairo is kind of open for business for the Allies to recapture. There's very little the Axis have. They have their four fighters, but I would imagine they'll probably get out of there knowing that the sizable Russian army's coming up. The British stayed and kept a blocker in, so the Germans couldn't just blitz through and attack all these Russian tanks. So they'll have another turn to move on. There's nothing in Transjordan. They just easily come in to Cairo, unless the Italians set up their own blocker. But that would just delay a turn. Over in China, the Russians did send up a few units into China. Not a lot. A couple infantry, a couple tanks, artillery, just to help support them out. And they did make their attack into Manchuria. The Japanese had nothing up here, so they just walked in. And they're sending over a couple more units from their capital to support a northern attack. So the idea is to combine Soviet, China, trying to squeeze out this Japanese pocket. So we'll see how all that plays out. The FEC down here, the plan or the idea was get the whole Japanese army out of Burma up to Szechuan with the hopes of the British marching into Burma so they can attack Siam. But if they moved into Burma, then they're away from their fort that's protecting them and make this fighting this way easier. But they didn't do that. They just brought up one infantry to capture the territory. So that's quite unfortunate. It was kind of, high hopes that they would fall into that trap, but of course not. My opponent is much smarter than that. For down here, the British and Americans captured a few more islands. They do have two transports, so they're starting to do that slow island hop. But now with the American Anzac fleet removed from this area, this is the strongest fleet that the Allies have in this region. So it wouldn't take much for the Japanese to remove this fleet, remove this threat, eyeing both these transports as their goal. And the Japanese, they got 5 transports of their own. So I've no doubt they can recapture this. It would just be slow going, as the Japanese was out of position to really counter these moves. But good job, and really increasing the economies of the Allies here. Down in Africa, the combined South African Commonwealth forces brought up a bunch of their tanks. So the bulk of their infantry is in Cyrenaica. They did use the French to liberate Alexandria. They came into Upper Egypt. So now Italy only has 2 territories left in Africa. I'm not sure if they're going to hold out. Cairo is really weakened, or not really being defended by a lot. The bulk of the Italian force is in Tobruk, but they're being pinned down, not really been able to move. The saving grace for the Italians is that they do have a fort and a bunch of infantry. Not really, they got a few artillery, no real armor. So we'll see how, if the Italians do make a move, we'll see how that goes. But the Allies are definitely in a good striking to really get rid of the Axis in Africa. And what will end up happening there, if Africa does completely fall to the Allies, and if they're able to get Greece, the Allies are able to get Greece, then Turkey will become pro-Allied, and they will be able to be activated on the Allied side. So we'll see how the Axis respond to that. Over in South America, not really a lot going on, but the Allies did activate Peru, Venezuela. They Still haven't gotten into Chile, wanting a few more forces. Yeah, they could have went in with the artillery infantry, but just wait one more turn and then go in with 4 units, guarantee that win. And in Iberia, now there's a lot going on up in London. The Allies are really afraid of Sea Lion, as the Germans are now poised to break out. They would have done it last turn, but the Allies delayed them by 1 with the whole attack in the Denmark. But now the German Navy is out from port and able to make their landings. There's nothing that the Allies could have done to stop this. Even if they would have attacked, we have double scramble, 3 battleships. So they opted to keep their Navy in the sea zone here, bringing up the bulk of their force that was here, bringing them up, and they'll see if they can possibly strike them on the next turn, but maybe. But then the Allies poured as much material in here as possible. So you got the Americans, you got a ton of fighters. The British did repair 19 of the damage that was on the factory to allow them to build 4 units. So they got heavy tank, 3 infantry. They also built a fort. So they're really prepping up for that possible sea lion invasion. Now, the problem with this is they did have 3 fighters and 5 infantry. Liverpool, they abandoned it. So Liverpool is just a walk-in now. So we'll see. Maybe the Germans might just pour 30 units in Liverpool, purchase another 10 here, another 10 here, and just have to conquer this wave by wave, maybe, or they'll just go in now with as much as they can. We'll see what the German next turn response is. But the Americans did kind of abandon Iberia, opting to put some forces in this island here. They built up 6 more transports, a couple more amphibious tanks, and heavy artillery, a few more infantry, with the idea that if London does fall, they'll have somewhat of a counterattack. The British have no counterattack, as the British have everything that they possibly could get there. But the Americans do have a counterattack, so we'll see how that works out. On the income track right now, because of the gains in Africa, the Commonwealth is now up to 53. So if London does fall, all that money will go to the Germans, which will really hurt the Allies. So we'll see how all this plays out. In the Pacific, the rest of the American fleet. So the Americans had a small fleet here, a bulk of it here, and they opted, after the fall of their navy down south, they opted to back out of here, join forces back up in Hawaii, and we'll see how they respond to the next Japanese turn. The big Japanese navy is kind of damaged, so they have to, spend a turn to repair all that. If they come down to Papalu right here, now this is poised to attack here before the battleships get repaired, so that could be a problem for the Japanese. They're gonna have to figure out another destination to repair. They might have to build another port somewhere that would be safe. So it would be this sea zone, and build another base to repair those battleships before they can get back into the game to really be effective. Even though the units are still there, but they're attacking and defending at 6 instead of their normal stats, and their movement is restricted to 1. So that's a problem. But the Japanese did need to remove this combined Allied fleet, just so now they're focusing on one fleet as opposed to multiple. So we'll see how the Allies respond now. They did go ahead and build another battleship, a cruiser, and a few destroyers, but the bulk of their money went into the Atlantic this round. Yeah, so that's really it for the Allies. Just a lot of their effort went into getting as many units possible into London to protect that or to ward off an invasion. So we'll see how all this plays out on the next round. All right. Well, thank you for watching. Have yourself a great day.